Hello, all. So, I want to weigh in on this Gareth Southgate debate because often when people talk about Southgate and whether he should stay or go, there's a lot more heat than light that has actually shone on the dispute. And the reason for that is because people get very emotional. Often people have their own prior conceptions as to who Southgate is and what his qualifications are in terms of being England boss. The only fair way to judge Southgate, I think most of us would agree, is to actually look at what he's done as manager of England. So, in terms of what he's achieved at club level, which is very little, as we all know, although he spent very little time at club level, I think that is a distraction. It was more relevant when he first became the manager, because obviously you're going to ask the question, what is this based on? What has he done? He's been working with the FA, we are all aware, I'm sure, for many years behind the scenes with the under 21s. He, in many ways, was being groomed to be the next England manager. So it's a case where Southgate is quite unique in terms of England managers. Every other England manager that's come into the role has done so through their club record, certainly in my lifetime. And I can remember managers all the way back up to Graham Taylor. Ever since Graham Taylor, what has happened is that the FA has looked at what they've done at club level and then said, okay, your CV is strong enough, so you can now come in and manage England. That wasn't the case with Southgate. Southgate's club resume is extremely light, and so this was an experiment. But has the experiment been successful? Well, we've not won a tournament yet. However, we have performed better under Southgate than we have done under any England manager since Sir Ralph Ramsey. So that has to be borne in mind. And I think bearing that in mind, we can put aside the club record, okay? Because he hasn't been given this job based on club form. That's not the point. The judgment has been made that an England manager can be created by building him up behind the scenes, by allowing him to become a major part of the culture of the England setup. And in so doing, he will be able to offer stability, he'll be able to offer continuity in terms of focusing on youthful players and bringing them into the first team, and that he'll be able to bring an extra dimension to England, which perhaps previous managers hadn't been able to do because they weren't steeped in the process of development right from youth level all the way to senior level, which Gareth Southgate has been as part of the England setup. So I say that just to establish, I think, where the focus should be. And I go back to what I said at the beginning, the focus should clearly be on his England record. So I've listened to a number of people talk about Southgate. I've listened to the likes of TalkSport's Simon Jordan. I've listened to YouTubers such as Rory Jennings and Mark Goldbridge and the rest of them. And what they like to do is to highlight the fact that we've never beaten a major team or a big nation on the big stage. But what do we mean by that? Because, of course, the counter argument to that is that we beat Germany, didn't we, in Euro 2020/21. But then there'll be a pivot, and the argument will be, oh, but Germany weren't the Germany of old. And of course, it's very convincing to make that argument now because Germany just went out in the group stages. They didn't qualify from their group. So it's easy to make that argument. But let's bear in mind that back in the Euros last year, Germany beat Portugal 4-2 to qualify from their group. And that's why we got a last 16 meeting with them. So they weren't that shabby, were they? But okay, let's put that to one side. Let's say we don't want to give Germany credit for beating Portugal 4-2. They also did struggle with Hungary. Probably the less said about Hungary, the better at this stage. So we don't want to give Germany that much credit. So then what are we talking about then with big nations? We're talking about nations that have achieved things recently, that have gone the distance recently. Teams like Croatia, for example, who are now booked a place in the semi-finals of the World Cup for this year, and who, of course, were finalists in 2018. So what happened when we played Croatia? Oh, yeah, we lost to Croatia in the semi-finals of 2018. Right, no, what happened when we played Croatia in the Euros? Oh, right, we beat them, didn't we? We beat them. It was 1-0, wasn't it? Are they not a big team? If we're focusing on big teams in terms of current achievement, then we have to give Southgate credit for beating Croatia. If we're talking about big teams in terms of reputation, then we have to give Southgate credit for beating Germany. You can't have it both ways. So I want to get rid of that myth straight away. We've had good results under Gareth Southgate. It hasn't just been against Tunisia, Senegal, Sweden. We've beaten a few teams, and we've beaten them on a big stage. Now, I'm not here to say that Southgate is the Messiah, or to say that he's a very naughty boy. I'm not here to make either statement. What I'm here to do is to just put this into a bit of context. And the context, I think, that we should be analysing this from the perspective of is the context of a guy who has achieved more as an England manager than anyone since the last guy who actually won a major trophy, which of course was back in 1966, which according to my maths is 56 years ago. It's a long time, isn't it? And we've had a lot of managers in the intervening period, and Southgate has achieved more. It was Bobby Robson that got us to a semi-finals of a World Cup, the only one to do so since Sir Alf Ramsey, apart from Gareth Southgate. No one has taken us to a finals of a major tournament since 1966, apart from Gareth Southgate. We've been to a semis, a final, a quarter-final. Who can boast that on their CV, apart from Gareth Southgate? Nobody since 1966 has achieved that level of consistency at major tournaments. But yet these guys then want to talk about the Nations League. Now, I will be completely cards on the table, and I will say that after the Nations League debacle, and that's what it was, I thought that time was up for Southgate. I thought he might have lost the faith and respect of his players. I think there are a lot of parallels between Southgate and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the sense that both managers were able to build a camp based on harmony, based on mutual respect, based on friendship and camaraderie. But what was missing was that backbone, that steel, that need to win. That's what was missing under Solskjaer's Manchester United, and I felt that possibly that's what is missing under Southgate's reign as well. But let's bear in mind, when Solskjaer was delivering second-place finishes, not that many United fans were calling for him to be sacked. Ronaldo came in and I think upset the apple cart. I think there were fissures and divisions in the changing room, and that was the end. That was the end. Once the goodwill had gone, once that sense of camaraderie and friendship and happy to be there mentality was broken, there was no coming back for Solskjaer's Manchester United. And I felt something similar had happened under Southgate's England. I didn't think that necessarily a character such as Ronaldo had done it, but maybe just naturally the players had lost faith in him. Perhaps there were players there that were more steely, that wanted something a little bit more vicious, ruthless, dynamic in the camp. And that, as a result of that, the trust had gone, the faith had gone, and our Nations League performance was a disgrace. Let's not mince words there. But that notwithstanding, are we going to judge Gareth Southgate's England record based on the Nations League? A bunch of glorified friendlies for a tournament that really deep down is a preparation for the real thing. The real thing being, of course, the World Cup or the Euros. Those are the trophies that we care about. No one's going to remember years hence that we won the Nations League if we were ever to do so. It's a red herring. What matters is what he does on the big stage. People have said for years about England managers, including Gareth Southgate, oh, they do all right in qualifying, but when it comes to the real tournaments, that's when they get found out. Not so with Southgate's England. We lost to Croatia in 2018. They were a better team. We were young at that stage, and we hadn't quite found our identity. We didn't have the same quality, certainly not the same depth that we do now. 2021 was a great opportunity, and we did bottle it somewhat in the final. I agree with that, and that was unfortunate. But we got to a final. And as I've said before, that doesn't happen very often with England. And this time round, we had hopes. Although, let's be fair, because of the Nations League performances, those hopes were very much tempered. So it was difficult to see what England were going to do going into this tournament. But we got it together, battered Iran in the first game, had a disappointing stalemate with the US, played poorly in that game, played much better against Wales and put them to the sword, and then did the job against Senegal in a very accomplished fashion, particularly after the first 35 minutes. And then we go to France. We played better than France. I think that's the common consensus, and I agree with that. And we were unlucky to lose. However, I think the French were more clinical than we were. And I do think that the mentality in the French camp was stronger. I think they expected to win that game. And the way that we played on the pitch, we created opportunities, we fashioned chances, but the pressure got to us a little bit, and we saw that particularly with Harry Kane's second penalty. We just didn't quite have that extra steel that you need to go past the real juggernauts in these sorts of competitions, and France are that. They've got the mentality, they've got the recent achievement, the recent history. They've got the players. Griezmann was top class out there, absolute metronome creating for the French. And when the French got their opportunities, they were clinical. Tchouameni, we saw what a goal that was. Giroud as well. You know, he's having a fantastic Indian summer in this tournament right now. So, yes, the French, I think, outdid us in terms of mentality, even though I think we actually played better. And so, of course, that leads to, well, don't we want a better mentality then? Don't we want a manager that's going to install that stronger mentality? Well, name him. Who is he? I was listening to Jennings' video just now, and he mentioned Pep Guardiola. Is Pep Guardiola going to come in and become England manager? No, he isn't. He's just signed a new contract at Manchester City. I've heard people talk about Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp would have got us over the line. Jurgen Klopp, of course, who is under contract at Liverpool at this moment in time. Jurgen Klopp, who also happens to be German. And some might say, oh, it doesn't matter. We just want the most accomplished manager. We want the manager that's going to bring us success. Well, we had that attitude when Sven came in. And he had the golden generation. How much did he deliver? How many finals did Sven get to? Oh, no, he didn't get to any, did he? Semi-finals? Did it? You must have got to a few semis, right? No, not a single semi-final with the golden generation. In fact, Sven's greatest achievement in a major tournament only matches Southgate's worst achievement, which is this year. Okay. But then there was Fabio Capello. He had a great CV, didn't he, when he came in to manage England? What did he do when he took over the team? Did he get to no? Did he not get to a final? Okay, well, fair enough, you know, but did he get to no, he didn't get to a semi-final. Oh, okay. He did get to a quarter-final, did he not? Did he not even get to a quarters? No, we got humiliated, didn't we? In 2010, humiliated by the Germans in the round of 16. That's what happened under Fabio Capello, and he quit before he got to 2012. So this idea of just bringing a foreigner with a big CV, and that will sort England out, it's not worked in the past. I think we really stumbled upon something worthwhile here with Gareth Southgate, and I think the culture of having someone in who's been immersed in that setup, who believes in youth, who wants to bring the youth through, who is trying to develop a natural progression through the ranks to the main team and really create a spirit of actually an England national team, which isn't just a collection of disparate stars, but is a united group, which is full of of a feeling of pride and passion, creating an atmosphere that you get in a club when players are around each other, they like each other, they get used to each other, not full of cliques, but full of camaraderie, full of connection, and developing as well a system that suits the players. Now, of course, we get onto this topic, and that has been one of the criticisms, and I've been critical in the past, and said that have we really developed a system that suits the players' talents to in the way that it could do to its best level? And in 2018, I would say yes. I think with the players that we had available, the system was the right one. I think we got the best out of our squad. In 2021, not so much. I think we played with a handbrake on, and we particularly saw that in the final. But I think Southgate evolved in this tournament. Gone was 5 at the back. People criticised him for that, didn't they? They said, why are we playing 5 at the back? Why are we so fearful of the opposition? We should play to our strengths. So that's fine. Gone 5 at the back. Gone was the double pivot as well. People criticised him for that, didn't they? Rice and Phillips. You know, why do we need a double pivot? What we should have is someone in midfield who's more creative, who's more able to help set up attacks and get forward. Someone like Jude Bellingham, for example. Oh, yeah, he made that adjustment. We started off against Iran and we weren't playing Phil Foden. Well, when you're winning 6-2, people aren't going to be too critical. Against the United States, we were poor. And he made adjustments. After that, Phil Foden came in. Marcus Rashford started the game. Saka came back in afterwards, which has clearly been the right decision because he was by far the best England player against France for me. But the point is that he made adjustments. He saw that we were lightweight in midfield. He brought in Jordan Henderson. He saw that we were lacking in mentality on the pitch. Henderson played a major role there as well. He's a shouter. He's a talker. He organises players. He G's players up. He got us out of the funk that had set in that US game. So he's made adjustments. He's improved in terms of his ability to respond to adversity. And he's shown he's able to adapt. Another criticism of Southgate is his in-game management. And again, it is a valid criticism. Against Italy in the final of the Euros, we didn't manage that game well. We went ahead and we just defended for our lives and gave away the inevitable goal. And the ascendancy was very much with the Italians after that. But you can't criticise them for that against France. There was no issue there with in-game management. We were the better team. We were playing on the front foot. I would have liked to have seen Maddison come on. I won't lie. I would have liked to have seen him play in this tournament. He could have come on for Henderson, I think. Certainly, after Giroud got the second goal, we could have played with more of an attacking impetus. But I think that's a fairly minor criticism. Worried a bit about Saka being taken off for Sterling. That almost feels a little bit like putting your mate on the pitch. It felt sentimental. It's like, oh, he's flown all the way back from the UK to play in Qatar, so we've got to give him a few minutes. It almost felt a bit like that. I'm not sure that there were footballing justifications for bringing Sterling on at that stage. Again, I'm not going to be too harsh on that. There are some reports, although at this stage unverified, at least by myself, that Saka may have been carrying a niggle towards the end of that game. But these are fairly minor. Harry Kane puts his penalty away. It's 2-2. Who knows where it goes from there. And we went toe-to-toe with the reigning world champions. It's not too shabby. But anyway, let's say we think, you know what, Southgate, he's not elite. We want to replace him. You still have that issue, don't you? Who is the candidate? It's not Pep Guardiola. It's not Jurgen Klopp. Going back to Rory, he mentioned Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho. As Talksport pundit Jason Cundy said, he was special once. Not so much now. Mourinho is the past. And again, I think it's important that it's an English manager. An English manager who has that passion, that commitment, that drive, that determination, who the players can relate to as well. As a former England player, that doesn't hurt. which of course is something Southgate's got in his locker. That doesn't get mentioned perhaps so much by his detractors. He's been there. He's played at major tournaments, particularly and most notably Euro 96, when of course he missed that penalty which saw us go out to the Germans. He knows what it's like to compete in an England shirt and to experience disappointment, and he can help that team prepare and maybe avoid some of the errors that he made as a player. So it's not going to be Jose Mourinho. So who is it going to be? At some point, I believe an England manager with an elite mentality will emerge. Currently, that England manager does not exist. It could be Graham Potter. We'll see. Let's see what he does at Chelsea. It could be Eddie Howe. Let's see what he does at Newcastle. It could be someone like Steve Cooper at Nottingham Forest. We don't know. But as we stand right now, the English managers who are at big clubs are in their infancy in terms of really showing their quality and their pedigree. They need time. They're going to want to have time at their clubs anyway, I would imagine, to really establish themselves and try and win something at club level before taking on the England manager's job. So they're going to need a bit of time. And we're going to need a bit of time as England fans to assess them and to see really where they're at. In the meantime, what do? Do you just sack Southgate because he's not the greatest manager to ever walk God's green earth? Is that the criteria now that you have to meet to be the England manager? No, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's an emotional overreaction. The guy's done a good job as England manager. He is the best candidate out there right now. We've got to stick with him. There's no point in replacing a guy unless you're going to replace him with someone better. He's got strengths. He's a former England player. He can connect with the players. He's been brought up through the England setup, from the youth setup to the senior team. He's steeped in the traditions and the objectives of the England national team. He's achieved more than any England manager since Sir Ralph Ramsey. He's a good bloke. He talks well with the media. The players love him. And he is a great ambassador for this England team. He had a terrible Nations League tournament, but he's had a pretty good run when it comes to the tournaments that matter. So anyway, that's my assessment of Gareth Southgate. Like I said, I wanted to provide a bit more light rather than just the heat of either he's terrible as a manager, he's not elite, he's not got the mentality, or the opposite side, which is just unvarnished praise. You know, Southgate is not a perfect manager. I will say that freely. But if you're going to sack someone for being imperfect, then, well, every team's going to be looking for someone to take over, aren't they? And they're never going to find the candidate because that perfect manager does not exist, at least not currently. If you disagree, let me know in the comments and we can have a bit of a chat about it. More than happy to reflect on this. But yeah, I think we need to be fair. And the fair response is Southgate right now is B+. And there is no candidate out there who gets an A.